To understand about later rock music, lyrics, and the occult propaganda, indoctrination tactics, plus the worldwide web of secret societies push to spread satanic doctrine, immorality, drug addiction, and rebellion against Christ, we also need to understand the historical roots behind the path which they encourage their musicians and their music for people to go down. The path is the left-hand path, at the crossroads, or the two ways. During the 16th century, legendary accounts of Faust's pact with the devil, made up magical lore and legend. Faust is said to have made this pact at the crossroads. In some cases, pacts with the devil were written backwards or in reverse. This idea of going to the crossroads to make a pact with the devil shows up in later centuries in the lyrics of blues and rock and roll music. In Christendom's artworks, Christ holds up his right hand to bless those who are going up the right-hand path, while his left hand is down on those going towards hell down the left-hand path. Numerous other heavy metal and satanic rock groups have spewed forth their anti-Christ, anti-American, anti-God, pro-drug abuse, pro-wickedness themes upon the masses. The left-hand path, the crossroads. To understand the spiritual energy behind the modern rock music, we need to also travel back in time to earlier Christianity. In so doing, we will see how different early to later Christian doctrines, rites, symbols, teachings, and practices are reversed in Satanism. This will also help us understand why modern rock music contains satanic anti-Christ messages when the records of the 1960s through 80s are played in reverse, and why in the 1980s through 1990s, satanic messages are no longer hidden so much as they are now screamed out loud, as they are now in the modern music. This idea of going to the crossroads to make a pact with the devil shows up in some cases in later blues and rock and roll music and lyrics. A movie called The Crossroads, where a black person plays the part of the devil. So they're tapping into that colored symbolism again. The devil's messenger was a black person riding in a car, the black woman as his accomplice. So again, they're going back into these earlier traditions about Satan being a black-skinned person. This is what happened in later centuries. They literalized these colored symbolisms. These colored symbolisms were used by Christians of the slavery era as a justification to enslave the black, because they were subhuman in their thinking and demonic and barbaric in their thinking too. So it was a pretty time in American history, even though they were supposed to be for freedom and things like that. Frederick Douglass, he was a former slave, and he wrote this in Lynn, Massachusetts, April 28th, 1845, and he describes the conditions of what Christianity were like during this time. And these are the type of things that communist atheists will bring up in vilifying the United States. The fact that, of course, communist atheists won't tell you that 100 million Chinese were killed by Chinese communists, and that Stalin, during his purge and during collectivizationism, where they collected up all the farm equipment and state-run farms caused famines, under the Stalin purge, 50 million were slaughtered by the communists. So the communists will use, to vilify the United States, they will use the black slavery issue to just point out how evil and nasty an American country is. So this is what Frederick Douglass wrote.
What I have said respecting and against religion, I mean strictly to apply to this slave-holding religion of this land, and with no possible reference to Christianity proper. For between the Christianity of this land and the Christianity of Christ, I recognize the widest possible difference, so wide that to receive the one as good, pure, and honest is of necessity to reject the other as bad, corrupt, and wicked. To be the friend of the one is of necessity to be the enemy of the other. I love the pure, peaceable, and impartial Christianity of Christ. I therefore hate the corrupt, slave-holding, women-whipping, cradle-plundering, partial and hypocritical Christianity of this land. Indeed, I can see no reason but the most deceitful one for calling the religion of this land Christianity. I look upon it as the climax of all misnomers, the boldness of all frauds, and the grossest of all wills. Never was there a clearer case of stilling the livery of the court of heaven to serve the devil. I am filled with unutterable loathing when I can contemplate the religious pomp and show, together with the horrible inconsistencies which everywhere surround me. We have men stealers for ministers, women whippers for missionaries, and cradle plunderers for church members. The man who wields the blood-clotted cowskin during the week fills the pulpit on Sunday and claims to be a minister of the meek and lowly Jesus. The man who robs me of my earnings at the end of each week meets me as a class leader on Sunday morning to show me the way of life and the path of salvation. He who sells my sister for purposes of prostitution stands forth as the pious advocate of purity. He who proclaims it a religious duty to read the Bible denies me the right to learning to read the name of God who made me. He who is the religious advocate of marriage robs whole millions of its sacred influence and leaves them to the ravages of wholesale pollution. The warm defender of the sacredness of the family relation is the same that scatters whole families asunder, husband and wives, parents and children, sisters and brothers, leaving the hut vacant and the earth desolate. We see the thief preaching against theft, the adulterer against adultery. We have men sold to build churches, women sold to support the gospel, and babes sold to purchases of Bibles for the poor heathen, all for the glory of God and the good of souls. The slave auctioneer's bell and the church-going bell chime with each other, and the bitter cries of the heartbroken slave are drowned in religious shouts of his pious master. Revivals of religion and revivals of enslaved trade go hand in hand together. The slave prison and the church stand near each other. The clanking of fetters and the rattling of chains in the prison and the pious psalm and solemn prayer in the church may be heard at the same time. The dealers in the bodies and souls of men erect their stand in the presence of the pulpit, and they mutually help each other. The dealer gives his blood-stained gold to support the pulpit. In return, covers his infernal business with the garb of Christianity. Here we have religion and robbery, the allies of each other. Devils dressed in angels' robes, and hell presenting the semblance of paradise. End of quote. And after citing Matthew chapter 23 and Luke chapter 11, 39 through 52 about Christ's bold comment to and about the hypocritical practices of the ancient scribes and Pharisees, Douglas continues, quote, "Dark and terrible as is this picture, I hold it to be strictly true of the overwhelming mass of professed Christians in America. They would be shocked at the proposition of fellowshipping a sheep stealer, and at the same time they hug to their communion a man stealer, and brand me being an infidel, if I find fault with them for it. They love the heathen on the other side of the globe. They can pray for him, pay money to have Bibles put into his hand, and missionaries to instruct him, while they despise and totally neglect the heathen at their own doors."
End of quote. That's again from Frederick Douglass, and he wrote this in Lynn, Massachusetts, April 28th, 1845. And you can find this in the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, a American slave, and it was published in Boston, New York, Bedford Books, 1993. Pretty shocking illustration of what Christianity and the conditions that Christianity was in during the slave days. This source could be used to vilify Christians. If an atheist wanted to vilify Christians, as they like to do, and I've seen videos, CDs, and presentations where communist atheists use this type of stuff to vilify Christianity, in order to say that there's no God, or to vilify the United States of America.